Welcome to Trick Tips Volume 3, Secrets of Skate. In the previous 2 videos, we covered the basics of skateboarding in the first one, and the second one we covered a little more technical street skating, kick flips, 180s, you know, just more new school stuff, and also some mini ramp stuff. But now, we're kind of going to take you back. We're going to teach you some of the old school stuff, some of the foundation of skating, probably before you even realize it. You know, stuff that maybe isn't considered cool these days, but is still hard to learn and is valid, you know, and you could surprise some people by doing some of it. We want you to, we just want you to be more well-rounded. We want you to have more variety in your skating and be diverse, and also have a knowledge of skating beyond 1990s. We've also managed to convince a couple of our friends to help us. One is Vallely, who is a legend of street skating. He was pro in the 1980s, and now he's still going strong, so he's familiar with all this stuff. He probably invented a lot of it. And also world champion vert skater Bucky Lasek, because he's going to teach us some vert skills. And so we're going to go into some basics of vert, you know, so you can take some of those mini ramp skills and get up into the bigger ramps. So we're going to get started. You know, this is going to be a little more lighthearted because this stuff is just kind of fun tricks to learn. You know, this stuff is like the kind of thing this is the kind of stuff that you maybe weren't really focused on learning when you started skating, but now you realize that, hey, it's something else, it's something fun. So let me get started and you enjoy. All right, Mike V promised that he'd do the video if we had a quick Bertleman jam session, and what you just saw us doing was the Bertleman, and that's sort of a power slide layback. You put your front hand down, do it on wedge banks. I wouldn't really recommend doing it too much at the skate park because you might get hit because people like to jump over the banks. Oh, look, it's Mike V.
Hey,
legendary pro street skater.
Wow, thanks. That's very nice of you. It's an honor to be here, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. We actually used to ride for the same team, Pal Peralta, in the 80s, Bones Brigade. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Getting a little too nostalgic.
That could happen today.
That's true, huh? So what do you think we should start with? I mean, besides our Bertleman session.
Oh, the Bertleman's was a good place to start. I like that trick, but I say we step it up. Mid-80s, ollie grabs. Oh yeah, ollie grabs. Ollie grabs, basically ollieing up and grabbing your board. You can do it a number of ways, and it's usually easier to learn off of launch ramps, you think? Launch ramps, wedge ramps, like, so you get a little more air time? Today you'll see most people doing it off of ramps, but I learned them on the flat ground. I think we should start on the flat ground and then take it to ramps.
Yeah, if you can do them on the flat ground, then you got on ramps no problem because you get more lift off the ramp. So we get started and show you some.
Let's do it.
Ollie grabs, just like it sounds. You ollie and you grab your board. But the trick is to really lift the board up to your hand, you know?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be reaching down because that makes you go lower, and also it may be hard to get. You want to bring your legs up, and then it just comes up there and you reach, you know what I mean? Like, you can reach a little bit. Kind of turn it to whatever grab you're going to do, you know? If you're going to go mute, then you might want to sort of position your body so that it's facing your hand, you come down, or if you're going melon, then you want to sort of bring it around. But for the most part, you just suck it up and your upper body does the work. We'll show you some variations and we'll get back to it. As you ollie, have your hand positioned where you plan to grab the board. For a mute grab, hang your front arm around your front knee and between your toes. For a melon, reach behind your front leg and between your heels. And for an indie, reach around your back leg with your back hand and grab between your toes. Catch your board just before the peak of your ollie and hold it until you are descending. Release the board just before landing and stand up. Make sure your feet are placed properly on the board before setting it down, or face the consequences. As you gain more confidence with your grabs, try them on or over different obstacles, increasing your height and tweak.
All right, so those were ollie grabs. Those flat ground ones were a little harder than I remember them being, but I guess if you can get the basics down on the flat ground, then it'd be a good idea to start taking them to jump ramps, hips, transitions, even down things, you know, like down some steps or off a curb. Give you a little more air time, get your grab in there.
Yeah, I find you get the most sort of time to learn it if you go sort of a launch ramp maybe to a deck. Yeah, if you got them on flat, you can do them pretty much anywhere because that's the least amount of time you're gonna get. Main things that can go wrong is not grabbing your board, and that's either caused by not lifting your legs enough up to it, or not lifting your board with your legs, or just reaching down too far and it just doesn't give you any air time. If you're really bending down to try to get your board, you're just not gonna get in the air and you're probably gonna not have the time to grab it. So just make sure to suck up your legs and just bring it to your hand. Just deliver it. Deliver the board to your hand.
Yes.
Okay, half cabs. Half cab is basically a fakie to 180 ollie. You start off going backwards, do a little ollie, turn, and you end up riding forwards. And it's derived from a full cab, which is a 360 ollie, fakie to 360 ollie. 3 components. First one is your foot placement. You want to make sure your feet are set up basically like an ollie, kind of hovering over your tail as you start.
Next is your shoulder rotation. When you pop for the ollie, you have to make sure that the timing is proper so that you're rotating just as you pop. And as you rotate, it's important to remember that your leading arm will kind of guide you around for the half cab.
So once you pop, and if you've got the timing right, you're leaning, the 180 just happens on its own. I mean, the landing, it's all just sort of, it's all set up before you even do the trick, honestly. So that's about it, you know, and just we'll show you some common mistakes. As you begin, rotate your upper body by turning your shoulders in the direction you want to spin. Ollie while making sure that your front foot slides straight towards the nose and not off to the side. Shift your weight forward as you land, leaning towards your front foot to avoid shooting out.
All right, so those were half cabs. We had some good ones and some bad ones. I think you had some more bad ones than good ones.
Oh, I see. Right. Actually, you're right. Yeah, my problem was foot placement in terms of landing, and that's just a function of how you take off. You know, like if you snap it and you don't really get a good snap, your feet are gonna go all over the place, and you just got to make sure that once you take off, it's a really good pop. You know, it's all about that pop, and you got to adjust for it if you don't get it right.
Yeah. Well, when I first started learning this trick, I had a problem with under rotating, so I would come up a little short. But actually, that's how I ended up learning how to do the trick. Is I would kind of just half cab and pivot. I wouldn't make a full rotation. I'd make a half rotation and then turn it the rest of the way. And that's a good way to learn the trick. But eventually, you want to get to popping it and getting a full turn.
Yeah, you can get away with that. If you do over rotation, whereas you're almost going into a full caballerial, you can't really get out of that. So you just want to make sure that when you wind up, you don't wind up too far, you know, and when you pop, it's a really good one. And sometimes if you don't hit your tail, that'll send you over rotating by accident. So just make sure you get a good pop, don't rotate too far, and keep your feet solid. And you got it, half cabs. Yeah, we're gonna do full cabs, but Mike and I are a little rusty. Okay.
All right, this next trick is another old one. It's called the ollie north. It's an ollie, ollie 1 foot. You ollie, front foot kicks out, sort of like a judo kick. Yeah. It's a good trick. I like it. Why'd you put it in the video?
Well, a lot of kids wanted to know about it because they played in video games, and I think they like the name. And the name is actually derived from Oliver North from Ronald Reagan presidential days, Iran-Contra scandal. If you want to go check your history book, whatever. But we just like the name. So basically, you just ollie. And you can either do it in one motion where you slide your foot forward and actually over the nose and just kick it out, or you can do an ollie and then once it's leveled out, just sort of give it a little flick out, you know, judo style. And make sure you're leaning totally over your board, because this one can end up in a wheelie really easily. And that's about it. We'll show you some. And
let's go do these.
You know, yeah, I can do ollie north. As your front foot slides forward and your board levels out, continue sliding it over the nose and kick your legs straight out and up, karate style. Make sure to replace your foot and lean forward before landing. Okay, ollie north. Mike can blast him. He kicks his foot way out there. I like that. I'd like to do it like that, actually. How do you do him so high?
That's all pop. Just got to concentrate on the pop. I think it's similar to the pop, the late shove it, in that it's kind of a two-part trick in itself, because you kind of ollie and then you kick your foot out.
Kick your foot off, yeah.
You know, as far as some of the problems that you can encounter on this trick, you got to watch out for your board flipping. That'll happen because your body's not positioned right. I think it's important to remember on this trick and just about any trick, really. It's really about body positioning and feet positioning and keeping your weight centered over your board. Because if you don't have your weight centered properly, your board might flip, or you might fall backwards or go too far forward. So I think it's the same thing. It's just looking out for making sure your body's in the right place.
Yeah, especially when you kick your foot off, though, you want to make sure that your foot is flat on the board. If it's at all on your toe, your heel, the board's just going to flop from underneath you.
Yeah, and if you don't get that foot back fast enough, then you're going to get more of a loop out kind of thing.
Into a wheelie. Ollie north, wheelie. No one does them too much anymore, but hey, go out there and you know, rejuvenate it. Get it back. Bring it back. Late shove-its. A late shove-it is an ollie and then a shove-it on the way down from the ollie. And there was a trick that was big in the early 90s. And people kind of stopped doing them because now the big deal is to catch your trick. So you shove it and then you catch it up there. And this is actually done after you reach your height, your apex, and then you do it on the way down. And usually it's done front side.
Yeah, that's what makes it interesting, is because it's really a two-part trick. When you do this trick, you ollie, and as you level out of your ollie, that's when the trick actually happens. That's when you shove the board. So you ollie, reach your peak, and then it's a shove it, and then you land. So it's a two-part trick.
What you want to do is when you're at the top of your ollie, you got to be really level. You got to be over your board. Like, everything's got to be right for the shove it to work properly. And the shove it is like a scissor kick with your legs. You know, one leg goes one way and the other leg goes the other, and it's really tricky. But you got to keep your board flat, because otherwise you're going to land on a board that's upside down or just not there at all. But we'll talk about mistakes later. So let's try some late shoves and you know, old school. As you level out your ollie, kick your back foot towards your toes to start the board spinning. Simultaneously, kick your front foot towards your heel and downward. Stay above your board as it spins and make sure it is not flipping. Set your feet on the board before it spins too far and lean forward as you land. A lot of problems can happen with late shove-its. One of the biggest problems is leaning back as you're about to land, and you end up either with your back foot off, or you just end up in a wheelie, or you just end up shooting out and landing on your back. The way to overcome that is to just make sure you're really hovered over your front foot as you're coming down. What else?
Yeah, you gotta stay centered over your board. If you're not centered over your board, you're gonna loop out, or you can fall forward. Either way, I think it's just really important with this trick to really try and land, you know, with your shoulders square and you're centered. Yeah, leaning forward. Another problem is that the board will flip once you throw it into a shove-it. That is caused by your feet not being flat as you go to the shove-it. So maybe your ollie's off a little bit, maybe you're more on your toes or on your heel, but it's real easy. It just happens like that. You go to shove it and the thing just flops over and you end up landing primo sometimes, which I had a good example of. Yeah, again, I think this is a trick that because it's a two-part trick and because the main part of the trick happens after the fact, it's really it's something to add to your repertoire of tricks, and it makes you a more versatile skater. It gives you more options when you're skating at the skate park, or skating in a contest. You have more options there. All right, Tony's taking a break right now, so I'm thinking of trying something a little bit different. Thinking of going with a ollie finger flip. I don't know if Tony can do it, even though I do believe he pioneered that move on Vert before I had even ever stepped on a skateboard. But on the flat ground, it's different terrain. I don't know if Tony can hang with me. So this is an ollie finger flip. And basically, ollie, board goes into your hand. I grab it like this. So my thumb's underneath, my fingers are on top, and grab it, and I flip it. So it's ollie up, grab it, flip it, onto your feet, roll away. It's a good trick. I'm gonna stick it to Tony on this one.
Ollie your board into your hand and flip it in the heel flip direction as soon as you get a good hold of it. Grabbing with your thumb on the bottom makes it easier to hold longer through the flip. Grabbing with your thumb on the grip tape, like me, forces you to release it early and makes the flip less consistent. Okay, you got me on finger flips. I can't ollie into it. Think about it.
Sorry.
Well, what you got on impossibles?
Ooh, you'd think that I could do an ollie impossible after all those years of skating with Templeton, but no, I got my own variations.
Okay, let's see. Ollie impossible? Well, it's one of those tricks that I think people like the name a lot, and so they are curious about what it really is. And probably when it was invented, people thought, hey, that looks impossible, because during an impossible, the board wraps around your back foot. So you do an ollie, and it actually goes all the way over and comes back to where it was. Well, I start to do them. You want to get in sort of an ollie position, but I usually have my heel hanging off the board because I got these size 13 boats, and I got to keep my feet out of the way when the thing actually comes around. And I keep my front foot kind of in ollie position, but also off to the side just to get it out of the way. And there's a lot of scooping to it, so it's not really like an ollie. It's sort of like it's a start of an ollie, and you push your front foot forward, and that gets the board to roll around. So it's like there's this sort of sweeping motion your foot does, and you're sort of pushing it ahead of yourself. It's hard to learn. Sometimes it'll come into a 360 shove it, and it won't really roll, but at least you get the feel of it. So just work on that motion. You can actually try to work on it and take your foot off, step off it if you have to. But just keep at it, and I'll show you some, and we'll talk about the mistakes. Kick down and forward with your back foot in a scooping motion while kicking your front foot back and out of the way. Continue pushing your back foot as the board rolls over it, and prepare to replace your front foot. Set your front foot down as the board comes around and lean forward. Readjust your back foot if it ends up near the middle of your board, which is a perfectly acceptable landing of the impossible.
Marker.
Well, we both have our own issues with these tricks, and so we kind of create our own style, right? Finger flips. I decide that the ollie's not really necessary, although it's not as exciting. You can get it done, and that's pretty, and then Mike's got the impossible step off, no comply thing. But that's skating. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it and you're having fun. We don't care. Mike, what are the common mistakes with the ollie finger flip? Because I didn't even get to it.
Well, I think you gotta. Well, first of all, you gotta really, because the nature of the trick, because it's a grabbing trick and you're flipping it with your hand. Learning the flip in itself is kind of tricky. But once you get that down, you can kind of underflip, and you can land. It's easy to land primo like that, or you can be leaning too far back when you flip the board and loop out. Just gotta watch out for that.
I wouldn't know. Let's see, impossibles. There's a whole plethora of problems with that trick. One is the board flipping as it comes around, and that's just a function of the way it rolls over your foot. If your foot's not flat, if you're not keeping it level, or if it happens to roll over your ankle as opposed to just over the flat part of your foot, that'll just send it flipping, and you land upside down. And you actually land upside down on top of your foot, so it feels really bad when you do that. Other than that, the board, you know, instead of actually doing instead of going over your foot, it goes off to the side and it does like a 360 shove it. And if you make it, then you can work your way up to actually doing the impossible flop over, but it's fine either way, you know. It's just sometimes people might call it a 360 shove it, so.
Well, I think what was cool about this was we're kind of swapping tricks, and it shows that, you know, different people have different variations of the same kind of maneuvers. And, you know, you might ollie impossible, I might step off, I might ollie airwalk, you might early grab airwalk. but that's okay, it's okay.
One is basically it's taking the foot off and planting it on the ground and jumping into the air. And people used to do them on the street before people knew how to ollie, and that was their way to get over things. That was their way to get into the air, was to actually jump into the air by placing one foot on the ground. And this would be most classified as old school, if anything. And I'm not sure what the history is or why it's called the boneless one. But you can do it pretty much anywhere, right?
Oh, I think it's called a boneless one because one of your actual bones, one of your limbs, leaves the board and is planted on the ground. Perhaps. All right. But for me, this is one of the first tricks I ever learned. So I remember doing it on the flat ground first, then doing it on banks, in ditches. I even started doing it on ramps. And because it's one of the first tricks I learned, it's a trick that still means a lot to me, a trick I still do to this day. It's a great trick.
So we're going to do some for you, and you can choose whether you think it's worthy of your ability.
Oh, it is.
It is, but
it definitely is.
Reach down and grab your board in the same fashion as an indie air. Set your front foot on the ground and jump upward. Keep your back foot planted on the board while sailing through the air and getting your front foot back on. There are many variations possible with this trick, including off of ramps, 180, switch, finger flip, and what the... Oh, boneless ones? Well, when boneless ones go bad, not a lot happens. Usually, if you try to ollie your board into your hand, that doesn't work. You know, you gotta revert. You gotta like go back and learn how we started, which is actually reaching down and grabbing your board and lifting it up. I mean, it's a little effort involved. You know,
just when you think you bend it enough, you have to bend just a little further over. You have to actually grab your board and pick it up, which kind of goes against the grain of everything you've ever learned about skateboarding. But that's kind of where we came from. That's the skating we grew up with.
And learn your roots.
Yeah, but if two old guys like us can bend over and grab our boards, so can you. It just takes a little practice.
What else could go wrong? Other things is if you go up and you go for the jump and you decide you don't want to put it back on your feet, then you keep hopping and you're just like, you know, traveling, and you gotta just take that one step and go, because otherwise you're not gonna get that high and it's gonna look like you're doing this goofy boneless dance. Other than that, just make sure you turn your board. If you happen to tweak it out, just make sure you turn it all the way back, otherwise your foot's not gonna get on properly, you know. And you know, practice them, and you can one day do boneless ones like the Gons, the famous Gons, like this, sticking his tail all the way out.
Or you can do it Jersey style.
Or Jersey style. Jersey style. Ooh. Go to it.
right, this is another old trick. It's called the no comply. And this one's interesting because it's sort of a mix between an ollie and a boneless. We're actually taking a foot off and planting it, but you're popping it with your back foot, sort of like an ollie. But the only difference is you don't actually catch it. Well, you do kind of catch it with your front foot, but you level it out with your leg. So it's kind of a mix of old and new. Even though it's an old trick itself, it kind of has some staying power because it's just kind of different and interesting and versatile.
It does look pretty cool too, especially if you can get it to pop over things. Most of the trick is in the back foot. You know, you step your front foot off, and then it's like you've got to do the ollie and the leveling out all with your back foot. And if you hit a curve, sometimes that'll help you to jump up a little bit higher, but as Mike demonstrates, you can pretty much just do it off your leg and create an ollie out of it. And it's a fun trick. It is a little hard to learn though. You take it for granted if you can do it, but just keep practicing, and we'll show you our techniques. And
yeah, well, what's cool about it too, like the ollie, there's a lot of variations, so let's go jam a few of these out.
15-minute, no comply jam.
Let's do this. Where are we going? Right at the camera?
Place your front foot on the ground to the side of your board while doing a subtle ollie. Push your back foot forward, guiding your board as you jump with your front foot. Level out your board with your back leg if necessary, and place your front foot back on the board, leaning forward and riding away clean.
Action! All right, so there you had it, some no comply variations. If you watch the footage closely, you'll see that Tony's 360 flip no comply, he was actually on the telephone when he did it. Pretty cool.
I had to get distracted to actually make it because it was taking too long. Anyway, there's a lot of variations. You know, once you take your foot off, you can just kick the board around however you want. 360s, 180s, shifty. And the main thing you want to remember is that when you kick it, you really want to keep your foot pushing it through, because if you just kick it, the most common mistake is just kicking it out, you know, and the board just gets away from you, and you really got to keep it under your foot, and it's sort of a combination of a pop and a push. What else?
Can't get your front foot back on.
Yeah, not getting your front foot back on. Or if you go to hop and you just you don't commit to it and you just sort of skip it, you're not going to get any height that way. And so you just got to work on really watching the board and jumping over it. It's a little bit scary to commit at first, but do it a couple times, do it low, you get it.
Yeah, it's all feel. You just gotta work on it and feel it. Eventually, with enough practice, you know, all the elements will come together, and you'll be able to nail it.
You could be a no comply master and win your own 15-minute jam. Okay, pressure flips. Pressure flips kind of an older trick. It's like, what?
Dude, seriously? Pressure flips?
Yeah, what? It's old school. We're doing old school stuff, right?
Yeah, but pressure flips?
Yeah, it's like a flip trick.
No, dude.
No.
You're on your own on this one. I have nothing to do with it.
Okay, fine. I might catch some heat, but I'm keeping the dream alive, you know? Because it's almost extinct and people have forgotten about the pressure flip, and I'm here to bring it back. So pressure flip is basically, it's a kick flip using only your back foot, and you actually just put pressure on the tail at certain points to make it flip certain ways, and I really only do it one way, and mine's kind of like a kickflip varial. But I don't know, people just kind of forgot about it in the early 90s. A lot of people were doing it then, and that was kind of this movement, and then they just forgot about it. I think because you don't ollie into it, so it's not considered cool, but I don't care. I'm not here to win any popularity contests. So basically, for a varial pressure flip, you put all your pressure on your toe and the sort of inside of your tail, and that starts it flipping, and it kind of does like almost like a frontside shove it flip, where it's a varial flip, but if you don't kick it just right, it just kind of ends up doing a shove it. And so you got to really put the pressure on your toes to make it sort of scoop it. It's sort of like a pushing, scooping action instead of an ollie. And I'll do some, and maybe that'll explain it better. All right, but don't forget about them. Mike V, whatever. Start with your back foot closer to the back truck than on a regular ollie. Push down on your toes and scoop forward, sending the board into an inward heel flip rotation. Keep your front foot out of the way until you see the board come around and the grip tape welcomes you back on. Avoid landing with your rear foot too far back, which is a surefire way to snap your tail. Okay, common problems with pressure flips. Well, the biggest problem is not applying enough pressure. And if you push it out and it just ends up flopping upside down, that means that you're not putting enough pressure on your toes. It's almost like you're trying to get wheel bite. You're trying to get your wheel to hit the bottom of your board there, and that'll send it into a full flip. Another problem is you underturning it, and that's just kind of like you gave it pressure, but you didn't actually throw it forward. But you can actually pivot out of it if you underturn it. If you overturn it, then you're doomed. So, you just got to keep that balance and practice it. That's about it, though,
That's it, man. I went for a long walk and I realized I don't want to be a hater, man. Pressure flips are cool. The truth of the matter is I can't do them.
Okay, well that's fair, And after we watch this, maybe you can go out and learn them,
Well, yeah.
But we're keeping it old school, so we gotta.
No, I'm all about that. I'm all about
the gamut.
I'm all about people having their own tricks and doing their own thing. I mean, that's where it's at. And that led me to thinking while I was walking around that maybe I could do something that I specialize in, and that's kind of something that I feel strongly about. That's street plants. And we can do that.
I don't know about street plants.
What do you mean you don't know about it?
Dude,
what happened? We were just having a love fest. I told you I was stoked on the pressure flips.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna leave you with the street plants because you're the master, no doubt. Like you actually got sponsored doing street plants. I know that's for a fact. So
All right.
I'm gonna let you have that one.
All right, fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough. So street plants. The fundamentals of a street plant are pretty simple. Basically, you need a little bit of upper body strength, but really it's more so about balance. You bend down, pick your board up with your leading hand, or really whichever hand's more comfortable. You can grab with your back hand and plant with your front hand, or either way, it doesn't matter. You grab the board, you pick it up in your hands, and then you kind of go into a cartwheel type of maneuver, where you stall out at the peak of the cartwheel, so you're inverted, upside down, planted on one hand, and you just kind of bring it back down and stand back up. It's fairly simple, but it takes some practice. All right, that was the street plant. Like I said, it takes a little upper body strength, some balance, and definitely a lot of practice. It can be a dangerous trick actually to try, so be careful. You got to watch out for your board dropping on your head or hitting you on the hand. You got to really keep a good hold on it. And also you got to really work on, when you get up onto your one arm, putting the board on your feet all in one motion. It's a real fluid kind of a thing. And as you saw, we got Tony to try a few. He wasn't too fluid, but I think it worked out all right. So speaking of the man.
I'm more comfortable riding up a tranny and doing the hand plant and then coming back down.
Yeah, he needs the vertical to help him get inverted.
Yeah, doing
doesn't have enough upper body, but we're working on that.
That's fine, Yeah, I used to try to do ho-hos when they were big, when Mike actually made them what they are, and I'd put my board on my feet and I'd be like 10 feet tall and just this huge stick figure, and my board would always drop down and land on my hands half the time, so I gave them up.
Yeah, it'd be dangerous.
But it's fun to watch Mike do them, and it's fun to try street plants anyway. It used to be like in the 80s, people would just have a street plant session. Like, okay, here's a flat parking lot. Go, you guys, start balancing on your hands. And people kind of evolved out of that, but when you see guys like him do it, it's fun. Anyway, that's about it, If you want to learn them, like you said, make sure you got upper body strength, because I used to be a 90-pound weakling until I found street plants. All right, well, since Mike is here, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about drops, bomb drops and acid drops, because when he shows up to a demo, people just expect him to pick the highest ledge and jump down off of it onto the ramp. Am I right?
Yeah, actually, it's the first trick I ever did on a skateboard was a bomb drop. I didn't even have my own skateboard yet. I borrowed my friend's skateboard and I climbed on top of his grandfather's car in his driveway, and that's the first thing I ever did on a skateboard was jump off his car. So I even took the bomb drop to the extremes of, because before I could even ollie up a curb, I would sort of bomb drop up a curb. I'd run with my board and jump up the curb. It was just my answer to getting in the air on a skateboard before I could ollie or even bend down and figure out how to do a boneless or something like that.
That works.
Yeah.
We're not going to show you how to jump off of cars, but what we do want to show you is how to drop, because if you drop off something, if you ride and drop off of something, that's an acid drop, and you don't do an ollie. And so you can actually go off of higher stuff than you would ollie off of, because you're not ollieing another foot into the air to drop down. You know, it works in a situation where suddenly you're at a ledge and you've got to get down it really quick and you go down. Or you can go straight off a ramp into the transition and sort of drop down the first part of it. You could also do a bomb drop like Mike and stand on something and jump into a ramp. That takes a little more skill just because it takes a commitment as you're jumping. But you know, it's good to learn. It's good to build up your confidence for going off of higher things. So, you know, this is one you can just work your way up. Go off a curb, go off a ledge, then start going off whatever you can.
Vert ramp.
Yeah, vert. No, not vert ramp.
No.
So we'll show you some, and we'll show you some common mistakes, although the most common mistake is just not going. As you start to drop, gradually straighten your legs down to keep your board on your feet. Absorb the landing by compressing both legs with your weight centered over the board. Avoid staying crouched, also known as the squat, and stand tall. This is the moment of truth here on a bomb drop. You're standing above something, you're looking down on the bank, everyone's watching you, no one's skating because they think you're going. So I learned from the master himself, Mike V, to get pumped up. Do some breathing. If you got a crowd, you know. And then you better go, because people are waiting.
Apparently Tony did learn well from the master, and so here I am, I'm up here ready to do my bomb drop, and what you gotta really remember is you have to spot your landing, and make sure you don't lean too far back. You wanna be really centered over your board, even maybe just a little bit forward when you're coming in. So, like Tony said, you grab your board, you put it out there, you get all pumped up for it, you gotta breathe. There's a huge crowd going crazy, get all amped up, spot your landing, get your feet placed on your board while you're still in the air, and roll away.
All right, well, with both tricks, acid drops and bomb drops, the main mistakes, first one is not committing. You stand up there and you don't go. Well, you didn't go, so you didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but, you know, you just gotta, if you wanna go, go for it. But once you go, you gotta commit to it. You know, you can't start in and start to drop and then decide, I don't wanna do this, and you're in the air, and that's when it gets really dangerous. What else?
Oh, you got to focus on your landing. You know, you got to really spot where you want to land, and make sure you keep your feet. When it comes to the bomb drop, make sure you put your feet on your board. And,
yeah, make sure they're set before you really set it down. And lean forward. You know, if you're coming into a bank, you got to make sure that you're adjusted already for the bank. You can't make that adjustment on the way down. So you got to be already committed to leaning forward. And
I know about that.
Yeah, actually, Mike has a few really classic mistakes on much bigger stuff that we were doing here. So that's about it, though. You know, you just make sure that you're leaning forward, you're not leaning too far back. But then again, you also got to watch for, on the acid drops, you got to watch for wheel bite, all right? Because when you land, you tend to sort of squiggle out, and your wheel can rub on your board, and that'll stop you instantly. So, you know, it's just kind of, you drop it, and you set it straight, you balance it out, then you're fine.
And when you leave your perch on the acid drop, you want to make sure you keep your nose up and then your board leveled out when you drop off.
That's it, you know. Just try some. Start it small. Start it very small. Just get used to it. You know, either way, if you're rolling or if you're dropping, just make sure that you are comfortable with getting your feet on your board, and you can go bigger and bigger and bigger. And someday you might be able to go as big as Mike, but I don't know. There aren't too many people that high.
We had some fun over there at the skate park with Tony, and I love skate parks. It's, you know, I'm all about supporting my local skate park and being there and making it happen there. But as you all know, there's other terrain, there's other places to skate, and most of the skating that I do was born in the streets. And so I want to take you out into the streets, my local neighborhood skate spot, and show you a few things here. All right, so you know what? I mean, Tony's not with me anymore, but I'm calling it out, man. Solo, 15-minute jam session here in the parking lot. Let's do this. By saying, you know, remember just to have fun and be creative when you skate. You know, anything's possible. Just have a good time. And you know, I just want to say to Tony and those guys, and Tony and Bucky filming the Vert section Athlon. And Tony, I appreciate you allowing me to be in your video and participating. It's an honor. Thank you.
All right, we want to thank Mike V for all of his help on our street section, old school style. And we covered a lot of ground last couple of videos. Street, mini ramp, old school, freestyle. We're finally up here where I feel at home, the vert ramp. So we're gonna teach you some basics of vert. Joining us is world champion, skateboarder, X Games gold medalist, Bucky Lasek. And he's ready to go. So I guess we better get started. And I'm excited. We're gonna show you some good stuff. Ready? Well, to start off on a vert ramp, you want to learn how to drop in, and we kind of covered drop-ins on our mini ramp section of our last video, but dropping on a vert is kind of it's a whole different thing. It's, you know, instead of going from this,
enough about the drop-in.
Bam.
I have a phone call. Listen, I'm trying to drop in here. I'm gonna have to call you back. Okay. Anybody who drops in for the first time on a mini ramp, they always lean back too much. I say, lean forward as much as you possibly can, and they think it's like so dangerous to do that, but they always end up leaning too much back, smacking their head, or sliding down on their... But on the vert ramp, it looks pretty scary standing up like this, but does it look scary when you're like this? Look how much smaller it looks when you're bending down like that.
Well, if anyone knows about dropping on vert, it's Bam. So he's got some good advice. You can start in this kind of a squat when you get up there and just sort of let your legs extend on the way down, but you just got to make sure you lean forward because everyone does that. They drop in and that's called Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. Well, why do they do that? They always just lean back way too much, and even when they try it again and again, they still lean too much back, and then like the fourth time, they finally realized that leaning forward isn't so scary.
What happened the first time you dropped in on vert? Do you remember?
First time I dropped in on vert, I axled in.
You did axle drop?
I axled in like this. I thought it would be easier for some reason, and my trucks were too much on this side of coping. I hung up, ate the worst crap ever. I was like 13 and it sucked.
Yeah, you don't want to start with the axle drop. What you want to do is just get over there. Don't wait too long, right? Because you look down and it looks kind of scary, but the more you sit there and contemplate it, it's like, oh, and then you wimp out. You just got to put your board down there and you know you can do it. You've done it on a mini ramp. Lean forward. That's it.
That was some good posture right there.
Thank you. What about the squat in? You can squat in, but it's a little bit harder to regain your balance because you start here and you're like... don't get as much speed. So that's about it, you know? You can drop it in a mini ramp, you can do it on vert. It's just a psychological thing.
So now that you got some confidence dropping in, you're gonna be able to do radder tricks such as, Tony, backside air, nice front side air, fakey rock, I don't know what that's called, nice air to fakey, gay twist, my favorite, tail slide, and an invert. Pure crowd pleaser right there. And now Tony and Bucky are going to show you how to do this step by step, but I'm out of here.
A good place to start on vert in terms of tricks are airs. You know, if you can drop in, even if you can't drop in, you can work your way up to airs. Frontside's probably the best way to start because frontside means that you're facing the wall. You can actually look where you're going and work your way up as you go. So when you start ollieing on vert, it's a different technique. You actually ollie upward instead of out from the wall, you know, and it's a little more subtle, but it doesn't take that much effort. What else?
Well, the higher you go, the less you pull out, and you bonk off the coping, the higher you go.
Yep, you can start frontside airs by grabbing them between your legs, which we call a stink bug, and then as you get more comfortable, you end up going around your knee, called tuck knee. That's for style points. Main things to remember on a frontside air, the takeoff. You want to ollie out, not too far, not too hard, but just into your hand. You can actually start by learning kick turns and grabbing them, and then start pulling off eventually. What else? You want to make sure you got a good hold of it, you know, and that you actually are going to turn the full 180 because sometimes you can end up coming short and falling back.
Yeah, a lot of people lean back when they go up so they can't come back in. You want to stay ahead of your board and you want to carve it like a kick turn.
Yeah, so you're kind of on top of it, and then the landing, you just let it go, drop it down, and lean forward. You know, if you can practice your kick turns, grabbing them, eventually you can just start pulling it off the wall and frontside airs. Once you're confident with the frontside grab technique, try other variations, such as slob,
Thank you and good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
lean, tail grab, and stale fish. All right, the good thing about frontside airs is you can do it at almost any height. You can work your way up the wall just by doing kick turns, eventually work your way up over the coping, and you can even get up in the 6-foot range, like Bucky there. Key things to remember, make sure you pull off the wall, right? Go up, you wanna get the board off the wall, a little ollie, straight into your hand. What else?
You don't want to lean back because if you lean back, you're not really going to be able to fall except for on your butt. And you want to stay on top of it because you don't want to lean too far forward or hang up. So you just want to cruise it, give a little bonk into your hand, keep the carve, stay on top of your board, and put it down.
You gotta make sure you pull off, especially when you're getting over the coping, because that's when you start hanging up in danger zone. That's about it. Just make sure that you turn the complete 180 and not too far, because if you turn too far, especially on a slippery ramp, you're gonna slide out. It's not a pretty sight. So just keep working on them. Try them kick turns, start blocking off the coping, and suddenly you can stink it up like him. All right, backside airs. Backside airs is a little different story. A little more dangerous. Backside airs, best thing to do is start doing kick turns, reaching down, grabbing your board with your lead hand right next to your front heel, a little bit in front of it. Just kind of like that. Just give it a little tappy tap. Give it a little tappy tap. And then as you start getting higher, they're easier to do up on vert. You just lift off just a little bit, and you come back in like a kick turn.
The whole thing to remember is to take the kick turn to another level. So you just want to keep that carve staying over top your board like a kick turn, grabbing the board in front of the foot like Tony said, and you kind of want to hold the board to the bottom of your foot the best that you can, and you just want to give a little scrape of the tail, and the higher you go, that scrape will turn into an air. I remember when I first learned backside airs, it was sketchy, like taking it from that level to getting air, over rotating, fracturing the rib.
Ooh. Okay, we're gonna teach you how not to do that, but how to do it right.
Tony's gonna demonstrate the over rotation.
No, we don't. We'll explain it. You know, you can visualize. All right. So let's do something the right way, and we'll get you started.
Yeah.
No, after you.
No, really, go.
No, I insist.
Come on, it's your thing. I'm just a guest.
Grab the board as you lift the front wheels off the wall and hold it tight to keep your back foot on. Slightly straighten your back leg and use it to guide your landing. As your wheels near the wall, let go and straighten both legs to land as high as possible without hanging up. All right, backside airs, well, there's a few things that can go horribly wrong, and Bucky and I couldn't
I'm
really...
not gonna demonstrate them.
Yeah, we couldn't really bring ourselves to do the demonstration because they can end up in a bad headache. First one is not pulling off the wall enough when you're over the coping and you hang up. And the hang up on a backside air is not a pretty one. It's not something you can just sort of ease your way out of. So best way to alleviate that is just really, hey, practice your kick turns. And you can't practice kick turns enough, reaching down and grabbing and making sure that you're comfortable with lifting off the wall, lifting it off, getting it over the coping, out onto the wall.
Get the carve. You can't stress the fact that you got to practice this one a lot. A lot of things stem from this trick, and you can't take it for granted, because when you take it for granted, you're gonna get served up chicken neck.
The other thing can go wrong, which is a real heavy on the chicken neck meter, is the overturn, and that's when you take off and you're spinning too far. Your back wheels you end up not coming down the wall straight. You're a little cocked, and your back wheels will just fishtail out and send you on your back on the flat. That's not a good one either. So same thing, practice the kick turns. You know, if you're not overturning your kick turns, you shouldn't be overturning your airs. It's the same motion, it's the same rotation. So just keep practicing. And last one is you get off the wall and you're not too sure of yourself and you're leaning back. And bottom line is, think of it just like your kick turns. You're leaning forward when you come in, you know. If you're leaning back, then you're gonna end up shooting out on the flat. And all three have real good whiplash potential.
You probably won't have wrists left. So you gotta wear all your safety gear and just get the flojo going and don't take it for granted.
That's about it. You know, backside airs, you do take them for granted eventually just because they end up being your setup for other tricks. But when you first start learning them, take it serious. You know, you want to make sure that you got those things wired and that you're not going to get served up.